about Julia, who is an English professor, and Homestead, which is a shelter for homeless families. And Julia volunteers there once a week. And she has a lot of jobs there, as all the volunteers do. They sent her on answering the phone. So we begin mid-phone here. It's shortly before Christmas, and the shelter is wound up tight. Before Julia had even sat down, the phone rang. A maybe donor with more time than Julia had. "I'm not sure why I'm doing this," he said. "I think most people could find work if they just wanted to. But I guess I'm a compassionate person, and it is Christmas. But I'm not a sucker, so I've got some questions first." "Yes, sir. What can I tell you about Homestead?" "Well, are you all black for starters?" "No." Maybe he didn't mean it that way. "So just what percentage would you say?" He did mean it that way. "About 80, trying not to sound like her teeth were gritted." The call got interrupted by other duties, but when she returned, he was still there. "Do you give him cash for Christmas? Because I think that's a real bad idea." "Homestead never gives cash like that, sir. We don't have the resources." "That's good. Get tough. Now, how can I be sure that if I give you money, it won't go for drugs?" "Find your own damn deserving poor." She slammed the phone down and looked around guiltily. Luckily, Angela's door was closed. Louise was managing another resident's call, and saved by chaos, Julia exulted, her little fit of temper unobserved. Or nearly. "You were mad." Brown hands and a small, handsome face appeared, quivering, over the counter, then dropped out of sight as the arm strength gave out. Julia stood to peer over. A giggle. Hoisting himself over the edge of it with a terrific twisting effort, a boy of about 8 plopped down on the counter. "I'm still mad. I eat boys who break rules by sitting on counters." "Aw, come on." Down. No movement. "If I have to come around this counter, I'm going to be sorry," he gleefully finished with exactly her inflection. Julia laughed, amused to see her empress moment reflected back pint size. "Can you play with me?" "No, I've got work to do." "What's your name?" "I'm Julia." "Gabriel. Everybody but Grandma calls me Gabe." "Can you talk to me then?" He knew that the ringing phone meant no and sidled off. She found him on the roster, Robert Johnson's son. Half an hour later, the fingers were back on the counter. "Gabe?" "Yeah, the phone ain't ringing now." She came around the counter out of the office. "How come you're not in school?" "Miss Louise said I had a fever." They chatted a bit, skimming subjects like the innate boringness of school and the general dorkiness of his classmates. He was surprised when Julia said she was a teacher. "Why aren't you in school?" Long last flirtation. "You got a fever too?" Intelligent kid, Julia thought. "No, in my school I don't have to be there all the time. Sometimes I can come here and talk to smart little boys who say ain't when they feel like it and aren't the rest of the time." "I'll bet you really like school too." "Yeah, I do, but I like my last year's teacher better. Mrs. Reeves is mean if you miss a couple of days." "Last year I made the honor roll. Grandma got me rollerblades." "That's great. Gonna do it again?" "Hope so," more dubiously. "He'd probably missed a lot this year." "You're real smart, Gabe," she said. "You can do it." On her way to Homestead a week later, Julia pondered its attempts to provide for the residents' natural desire to have some unforced choices. If the residents felt respected on the daily level, they might listen on the bigger issues. Callie had started the program that let both parents and kids pick out new presents for each other. She worked incredibly hard to assemble and display enough nice stuff to prevent fights and give some real options for Christmas. As Julia hung up the phone, Familiar small brown hands, nothing else, appeared on the counter. Gabe? Guess what I got Grandma? I almost got a pink face, because she grows rows and rows of flowers in her garden. But then I found something better. Gloves? No, but you're warm, it's to wear. Perfume. Grandmas don't wear perfume. I give. A cross, a beautiful gold cross she can wear on her coat for church. It's got a big diamond right where Jesus' head is, and little bitty ones for his hands and feet. I get it. Then remembering, oh, it's wrapped already. Gabe, Julia said, I'm still in school. How come you're out of school again? I want to see you make that honor roll. He looked down. I lost my jacket. Miss Louise say they're going to get me another one as soon as somebody can go to the store with me. Odd. How could you lose it in this kind of weather? I don't know. How come your dad isn't going to take you? He's at work. Too fast and too loud. I'm going to go to the lounge. Wrong question. Never criticize a child's parent. Too late. Later that morning he was back though. Gabe came boogieing down the hallway with his Walkman on. What you listening to? Julia said. Gang Starr. You like them? They're my favorite. Hip hop. She riffled through all three of her mental note cards on hip hop and could remember exactly what Gang Starr was selling. I don't listen to hip hop very much. They're good, huh? Yeah. You don't like hip hop? Woo-wee. What do you listen to? Classical mostly, she said. That violin stuff on the radio? That music with no words? He was incredulous, as if she'd said that she ate light bulbs for dinner. Yes, my husband John plays violin, Gabe, but not in an orchestra. It's just nice to listen to. Forgive me, Johann Sebastian. I play too. Got me a horn. Soprano saxophone. Where'd you get a sax, Gabe? Unusual instrument for a child this young. Grandma gave me my grandfather's. A giggle. She calls him Granddad, but she told me only country people say that, so I say grandfather. Then, returning to business, come on, you gotta know Gang Starr. Julia knew only in the barest sense. Her hearing had always been poor, most lyrics escaped her. With hip-hop, her ears just curled shut. She hated all that rape the bitch hoe stuff, but she couldn't say that to an 8-year-old. One of her friends who really knew music said gangster rap was only a small part of the field anyway, the part the media had focused on. She was suspicious. It was supposed to sell well, especially to white suburban boys, her favorite constituency. I can't hear the words in hip-hop, Julia said. Well, you gotta listen. Are there saxes in hip-hop? I thought it was all a cappella. He frowned. What? A cappella. It means just voices, no instruments. People talking in hip-hop, isn't it? Or kind of chanting? Mostly, but it would be better with a sax. See, a sax is like another person's voice. I could be rapping and then, or somebody else could be rapping and I come in with my sax. He mimed a soulful riff, eyes shut, invisible instrument lifted, fingers making a composition audible to him alone. He finished with a bravura flourish and a modest bow. Where'd you hear sax, Julia asked. I like jazz too, Gabe said. Another nearly blank spot for Julia. You mean like John Coltrane? Gabe hooted. She tried again. Charlie Parker, he was a saxophonist. My grandmother listens to them. Total disgust. Archie Shepp. I like Archie Shepp, she said. Desperation move. Was kind of true. She knew one of his records. Gabe didn't believe her. Name something, he said. Give me my money, she crowed triumphantly, and went on to reproduce some of Shepp's endlessly creative riffs. Give me my money, she demanded, first shaking her finger at Gabe from some imaginary great height, then zooming her face into his. and looking menacing, then boogieing back and forth in her best Muhammad Ali imitation. Gabe was delighted. He joined the act singing along, sometimes playing the cowering debtor, sometimes rearing his 4-foot body tall and flexing his muscles to become the dominant speaker. The phone had interrupted them, of course, but he kept her under surveillance, and whenever it was quiet for a minute, they chatted a little more. At the end of her shift, Julia said, "I'm not going to be here for the next 2 weeks, Gabe. I'll see you after Christmas. I know your grandmother will love her cross." 2 weeks later, Julia looked at the roster in some puzzlement. "Gabe gone?" she asked Louise. "Yeah, Christmas Day." Christmas Day? Did they just leave then? Families often left without getting useful housing. There'd be some tiff over the rules, or somebody's new boyfriend would invite them to stay, and the family would be gone. No real housing was going to come available on Christmas Day. We had some bad news. I mean, a bad thing happened, Louise stumbled. "We aren't too happy." "Come in my office a minute," Angela, the director, said. "You remember we used to tease you when you had all the hard first-time things, when you didn't know any of the answers, like the first call from a crazy person, the first reporter?" "Yeah." "We had another hard first for all of us, the first death at Homestead." "Not Gabe." "No, he's okay, thank God. At least he was last time we saw him. You know how that goes. Let me start over. You know how I told you we try to discourage large gifts of money, and every year somebody does it? This year somebody won big on the Powerball. They were thrilled and they wanted to share. You can't blame them for not knowing it's not a good idea. So we okayed it but limited the gift to $100 apiece. We thought that would be safe. Early Christmas Eve, the residents and the staff all got $100 bills. Enough for a deposit or a chunk of the first month's rent or a payment on a big utility bill. Everybody got real excited. Louise was talking about getting her grandkids signed up for a program at the IMA. I was thinking about getting some percussion instruments for the Head Start class. A lot of people just went out for a little bit of late Christmas shopping. Just before dinner, Gabe came out and told Louise that his dad was sick. Louise knew something was wrong because Gabe was mad. When she went in, Robert was on the floor with a needle in his arm. She yelled for Nancy to dial 911, and then she started CPR. You know, the chest massage and mouth breathing stuff. Julia nodded. An overdose of heroin makes you foam at the mouth. Did you know? Angela's voice continued flat as a grocery barcode reader announcing prices. So, he was dead. Louise knew it right away, but she kept it up for Gabe until the paramedics got here. Later, she got worried about AIDS, with the saliva in his being an IV drug user. Does she really have to worry? A sigh. Probably not, but I've seen that kind of death before. I was an EMT for a while, you know, but Louise hadn't. We okayed counseling for her. Yeah, right. AIDS probably isn't the most obvious thing to catch here. Despair is probably deadlier, Julia thought. She went back to the front desk, called all 5 of the other shelters. No free rooms anywhere. Each voice relieved to know that she represented an agency, that she wasn't one of the people they were set up to help and too full to accept. Phone. Homestead, Julia speaking. May I help you? Yes. I'm sorry, no place in the city has room right now. Yes, I know. Keep calling at 9:45 in the morning and, that's right, 5:45. The caller knew the drill already, had probably been to other shelters. What happened to Gabe, she asked Louise as she wrote bright, cheerful thank yous by the sleighful for Homestead's Christmas. They weren't insincere, but writing them got to be as mechanical as sewing on buttons. His grandmother came and got him, Louise said. She didn't take his clothes or anything else. He didn't have much, though. 3 more calls. 1 drunk, 1 defeated mother with a toddler, 1 angry mother of 5. What I'm supposed to do? I've been living in a car with 5 children. Every night we go to Beacon of Light. And every day we call you people and you don't do us no good. Beacon of Light is the city's emergency don't let them freeze during election year program. People slept on pews. Julia fought guilt, anger, and a growing headache. Did she expect this woman to be polite to her? She tried to recognize the woman's anger without encouraging rage or false hopes. Better, she told herself, better that she's mad. Anger was better than flattened resignation. The front door opened for perhaps the 20th time that morning. An older African-American woman came in, maybe 60, portly, wearing a black wool coat with a brooch and an olive green beret pulled down over her ears. She had a sullen young boy by the hand, Gabe. Julia looked quickly at the brooch again. Sure enough, the rhinestone cross. Hello, Gabe, Julia said. How are you? Okay, he mumbled, as she thought, oh, truly stupid question. Mrs. Baines, Louise said, how can we help you? I came for Gabriel's belongings. We haven't packed them up yet. I'm sorry, we've been awfully busy this week, Louise began. I'll do it right now. Gabe, you want to make sure I don't miss anything? I ain't going in there, he said. Julia knew Louise didn't want to go in there either. In a few minutes, Louise reappeared with a small plastic grocery bag of clothing. Mrs. Baines stared. Where's his horn? His horn? His horn, the boy's sax. He plays a horn, and he brought it here. I surely would have seen it, began Louise, puzzled, when Gabe interrupted. Dad pawned it. He pawned it? Mrs. Baines's voice rose. Your granddad's horn? Yeah, yes, ma'am. My Swiss Army knife, too. Gabe looked down, ashamed. Where? I don't know the name, Gabe said. He say you gotta have the money. Yeah, I know what for, Mrs. Baines snorted. I'm sorry, Louise said. They left. I need to get that room clean, Louise sighed. While Louise scrubbed away the last evidence of Gabe and Robert's month-long stay in number 12, Julia tried to keep the lid on. 2 toddler fights, 1 resident squabble over who left the mop out, diapers to be given out here, and shampoo there. Louise returned with some oblong pieces of red cardboard, like theater tickets. Threw everything else away, but you know what these are? Lottery tickets, Julia guessed. Close enough, Louise said. Pawn stubs. The phone rang. Mrs. Baines found the saxophone, as well as a knife and some of Gabe's books. The pawnbroker had read about Robert in the Indy paper and recognized the story. Probably hoping for free publicity, he threw in a slightly wobbly music stand. Didn't matter a lot. Gabe played by ear. That night, after toasting the new year with her husband, John, Julia finished the champagne by herself, except for Archie Shep wailing the New Year's blues.